Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today a mysterious meteorite has given you and your closest friends and family members amazing new gifts, superpowers like fire manipulation and flight. Together, you've all agreed to move to Superb City to fight crime and protect its citizens under the new superhero code. Using your newfound superpowers, nearby objects, and your real-life knowledge and creativity, you and your team of aspiring superheroes must work together to avert crises and keep Superb City safe. But beware, with superpowers comes super corruptibility. Some on your team may just be biding their time before they reveal their true sinister selves. Be mindful of those closest to you who know all your deepest fears and weaknesses. They just might use those secrets against you. You, Superpowered, is a social deduction party game where you roleplay as yourself with superpowers. It's for 3 to 8 players, ages 13 and up, takes 20 to 60 minutes to play, and is published by Neon Mew Games. It's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and then I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to get a secret identity, like a superhero or maybe a supervillain. And there's a certain amount of these cards out in the game depending on the amount of players. Now in addition to that, each player will also get a secret weakness, like the orange malite or the yellow malite. And these hinder these players from possibly averting crises, which is very important to trying to successfully complete missions. And missions are important because that's one of the main factors in winning or losing the game. Now I'll go over all the details of how the different endings play out depending on which side you're on, but generally speaking, the superheroes are trying to win a specific amount of missions, depending on the player count, and they're trying to keep their secret weaknesses hidden from the villains. But at the same time, they're also trying to figure out who the villains are and possibly what their secret weaknesses are. Now the supervillains are trying to do the opposite. They're also trying to win missions, and they're trying to keep their secret weaknesses hidden from the superheroes, and they're also trying to figure out who the superheroes are and trying to figure out their secret weaknesses. Or you might be an undercover hero who's trying to win with the hero team, and they're also trying to misdirect and mislead the villain team. And if you're the rogue, you're trying to get the heroes to win, but also have the most points, so you're trying to win the game all by yourself. Now, depending on the amount of players, there'll be a certain amount of roles and cards in there. In this case, we're setting up for a 5-player game, so there's going to be 2 superheroes, 2 supervillains, 1 undercover hero, and 1 rogue. Now, even though there's 5 players, there's 6 cards. These are going to get shuffled out and secretly given, and one of them will be left out of the game, and that's important for the end game. So you don't know exactly how many of anything there are for sure. So each player is going to get a secret identity, which they'll secretly look at and keep face down for the entire game. They'll get that secret weakness we were talking about earlier, of course, not showing it to anybody, but they'll get 2 superpowers, and those will be face up. Like in this case, we have fire manipulation and flight. You'll also get some other cards, but we'll show you how those work later. The game goes through 2 phases, the missions phase and the end game phase. You'll go through the missions phase multiple times until a certain amount of missions is won by a certain side, depending on the amount of players. Then you'll go to the end game phase. But at the beginning of the game, the player who's last performed a heroic act will be the first mission hero, and they're given these 2 badges, mission hero sidekick, and some other components as well. Now each mission is going to have a mission hero, a sidekick, as we just showed you those badges, but there's going to be 2 crises that happen in one specific mission. And the mission hero is going to roll this die, and based upon that, they're going to see which district, 1 through 6, will have the 2 crises for this mission. Now, even though normally you'd get 2 crisis cards from one location, to show you an example of the types of crises you might see at different locations, I'm going to show you one from the industrial and stadium locations. Now, based upon those different locations and your superpowers and other players' superpowers, you'll give one of the player to partner up with you as the sidekick. So you'll give them this badge, and you'll be partners on this mission for these 2 crises. Then both the mission hero and mission sidekick will share with each other secretly their secret weaknesses. So the mission hero will give their secret weakness to the sidekick, who will then look at it and give it back, and the mission sidekick will do the same, so they each know what their secret weaknesses are. Now both the mission hero and the mission sidekick are going to be dealt 2 random object and weakness cards face down, just like this. Now, even though the players are looking at these secretly, I have placed them face up so you can see what they are. Now, these are going to be one of two types of things. They're going to be either large malites of different colors, which, by the way, will be corresponding possibly with the secret weaknesses of either yourself or maybe your sidekick or the other player that's on the different mission with you. They're also going to possibly be a large mystery unit, which essentially is 3 real-world objects that you're going to use to try to avert the crisis with. So each of the players, the mission hero and the mission sidekick, from the 2 cards they were dealt, they're going to secretly select one of them to place for this mission. The other one will get put into a discard pile where you can't see it. Now keep in mind, remember that both of these players were able to see the secret weakness of that other player, and if they're trying to work with them and make it successful, they're trying to not place the malite that is their secret weakness, or if they're trying to throw them under the bus, maybe they're trying to purposely throw down what their weakness is, that might make them fail. So in addition to the 2 single cards that each of the hero and sidekick placed down, there's going to be a 3rd card placed there. And the mission hero is going to decide where this 3rd card comes from. It's either going to come from the public, which means the top card face down off the top of the object and weaknesses card deck, or they can pick another player that they trust and deal the first 2 cards off the deck to them face down. This player will also select one secretly and discard the other so no one can see it. Next, you'll take all 3 cards that were selected and you're going to shuffle them up and then place them out so that you don't really know who placed what cards. So in this case, we have a large mystery unit, a large red malite, and a large orange malite. Now, if either the mission hero or the sidekick has either of these as their secret weakness, they are incapacitated and automatically fail the first crisis. But let's assume that didn't happen. You'd flip over and read the first crisis and then immediately assign it to yourself or the sidekick. So here I have this set up. I have my secret identity, I have my superpowers, we have the crisis cards. You'd flip over this first one and read it. For example, it says, no nets. Situation: while patrolling the circus inside the arena, you see that the trapeze act has gone terribly wrong and one performer is now falling to the ground below. Your objective is to catch the performer before she hits the ground, and this is a 3-point crisis. So right now you have to immediately decide whether you're going to try to avert the crisis or your sidekick is going to. So let's say we wanted to try to avert the crisis ourselves. We'd have 30 seconds to be able to do so. Now, if you're a hero, you must be honest, forthcoming, and obey the superhero code, but villains and rogues may lie or hide truths. Now, players can only perform acts in their explanation that they can honestly perform in real life or acts made possible by your superpowers. And you can only use objects that are commonly in the location that you're in. This is a stadium, so something you would commonly find in a stadium, or possibly you're going to be using some of the items here. So let's say I had 30 seconds. I would say, well, clearly the trapeze artist is falling and I have flight. I can fly up to 15 miles an hour while carrying or towing up to 2 times my body weight. So I fly in, I catch the trapeze artist, and I bring him to safety. But I also see this large mystery unit, and inside I find nets, pulleys, and rope to ensure that no other trapeze artist will fall in the future. Now, each player that's not on this mission will have one of these judging cards which has success or failure. And each player is secretly and simultaneously going to reveal whether they think that crisis was a success or it was a failure. Now, real-life fears, weaknesses, and inabilities of the players must be considered. For example, if you're afraid of heights in real life and allergic to cats, you can't say that you would climb to the top of a tall tree and rescue a cat. If you do, the judges who know you and your fears in real life should fail you. And each player can ask one question to clarify their explanation if they'd like. And any doubts or questions raised due to the superpowers or objects or anything with the crisis is up to each individual judge's interpretation. Now, a majority vote needs to happen in order for it to be a success, meaning more successes than failures. If it's a tie or there's more failures, then the crisis is deemed a failure. Now, all votes are final, and heroes must judge honestly, but villains and rogues can judge to their own advantage. Then each player that has one of these cards is going to vote on possible style points. They can vote for 2, 1, or none. They all do that simultaneously. So let's say I successfully averted the crisis. This was a 3-point crisis. So I would put this blue cube here on crisis 1, mission 1. It's 3 points. So if I was the purple player, I would go up 3 points on this popularity track. Now, if I failed that crisis, it would be a red cube because we failed it. And instead of getting 3 positive popularity points, I would lose 3 popularity points. But in this case, it was successful. Then you'd also look at the style bonus table here, depending on the number of judges and the number of style bonus points. You'd get a certain of style bonus points awarded. Let's say we got 2 of those, we would move 2 more like this. So then it would be the other player's turn to try to avert the second crisis. In this case, it's the sidekick. And it says surveillance. 100-foot tall cargo ship docked in the port and protected by armed guards and security cameras is believed to be carrying stolen merchandise. The objective is to sneak on board the ship and collect video evidence of illegal activity. Well, this one's easy. I don't even need any mystery units. I'm going to use my super speed to fly right by those armed guards right onto the boat. And they felt me go by, but they didn't see me. And then while I'm on there, I use my technokinesis to be able to hack into their systems and download all the video evidence I want. Of course, using my super speed to get out and save the day with all the evidence. But let's say they successfully averted a 2-point crisis, and let's say it was the orange player like that, and let's say they got 1 bonus point. So maybe it was like this at the end of the first mission. Now, if both crises were averted, the hero will also get 2 bonus points, and so let's say the purple was the mission hero, they'd go 2 more, and you would place a blue here on mission 1. However, both crises were failures, the mission would fail, and the mission leader would actually lose 2 points for a failed mission. And if it's split, the first crisis was averted, but the second one was not, the one with the higher points will be the mission results, meaning there was 3 crisis points for the averted one, and it was 2 for the one that was failed, so the mission would succeed. If this was flipped, then this would have failed. Now, after the first mission is done, you'll do the same thing in the following missions, and you'll need a certain amount of missions won, and there's a certain amount of maximum missions depending on the number of players. And of course, the players are going to have different amount of popularity points at this point, and when this ends, you'll go to the end game phase. In this phase, if the villains have won the missions phase, the player with the most popularity points on the score sheet will get the hero leader card. And at that point, if the player that has this is a villain, they can reveal and all of the villains have won. But if you receive this hero leader and you are not secretly a villain, then you would lead a brief discussion with all the other players, about 1 minute per player, to determine who among you is a villain and what their secret weakness is. So let's say after the discussion you say, you're a villain, and I think your secret weakness is yellow malite. This player would flip it and go, yep, I'm a super villain, and yes, I have a yellow malite. And you'd keep doing this one at a time, trying to get all the super villains. Now, if you leave any super villains out, or if you are wrong on either saying someone's a super villain or their secret weakness, the villains immediately win. Now keep in mind, there's always a roll out of the game because there's always 1 more roll cards than the amount of players. And you might say there's no villains left. We've gotten them all and the last one is out of the game. And you would go ahead and check, and if so, hey, you would win. And if not, well, you'd lose and the villains would win. Now, if you're able to 100% identify all of the villains and all their secret weaknesses, you would reveal your secret identity. If you're a superhero or an undercover hero, then all of the hero team wins. However, if at that point you were the rogue, you're the only person to win the game. Now that's what would have happened if the villains had won the missions phase. Now if the heroes won the missions phase, all of the villains and any undercover hero who's pretending to be a villain, they would immediately identify themselves as villains, but they don't reveal their secret identity cards. Then you'd look at the score, and whoever from those villains had the fewest popularity points becomes the villain leader. Now, if at that point, the player that has the villain leader is actually the undercover hero, they flip this over, show everybody, and they win with the heroes. However, if the villain leader is not secretly the undercover hero, then this player leads a brief discussion, just like we had talked about earlier. They're trying to figure out who all the heroes are and all their secret weaknesses one by one in the same process I showed you earlier. Meaning, if the villain leader correctly identifies all the heroes and their secret weaknesses, including the undercover hero, then the villains would win. However, if you fail to do that, then the heroes win. Unless in that case, the person that is the rogue has the most points. And in that case, instead of the heroes winning, the rogue would win by themselves. And finally, I want to show you that the different badges, like the mission hero and the mission sidekick going through the mission phase, on the back sides has the step-by-step instructions of what you would do with those roles. And same for the endgame phase, the hero leader badge and the villain leader badge also will walk you through each of the steps. Well, there you have You Superpowered. And as I showed in the overview, it not only has elements of social deduction, where you're trying to figure out who the others are along with their secret weaknesses, but you're also role-playing and using creative stories to show how you'd avert the crisis. Now, if you'd like to see the final art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video, and it will take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure the fine folks at Neon Mew Games would love your support.